Lee Robinson, and I'm here to do my third live TikTok, talking about what is basically my journey. To begin with, I broke my neck 6 years ago playing polo, and spent some time in an emergency room, and then subsequently into an ICU where I spent a couple of weeks. And I'm going to be going over that today. This is a little bit unusual because I am used to talking in front of live audiences, doing my seminars as a plastic surgeon. So talking to the web is a little bit weird. But I'm going to start by just reading the short introduction to the book that I'm writing. And going forward, if you don't know, I'm reading a chapter of this book every week, and then taking questions from people for as long as people will ask questions. And we'll have our director, which is Avery, one of my caregivers, talking about that. And then I'll introduce the inspiration for me to even do this book. So to begin with, this is my intro to the book. Remembering the exact moment I broke my neck. It's that kind of detail that sticks. It's a cinematic freeze frame where everything slows down and life splits into before and after. There's also the feeling of speed and the rhythm of the horse beneath me. It was a kind of controlled chaos where you convince yourself you've mastered enough years doing something dangerous, but calling it a sport. There's no dramatic soundtrack when the spinal cord goes offline, just a sudden stillness. You try your best to move, but nothing happens. There's no pain, not even the feeling of numbness, just the absence of anything. This isn't the story of some spiritual awakening to find some sort of acceptance, but rather the recollection of every exquisite detail of an extraordinary journey. The journey of a life's new chapter. So right now I'm going to introduce my wife Carla and her twin sister Kathy, who
Hello! His helpers.
not helpers. You guys were the inspiration for me to even do this book. It's just it's a major undertaking, but
That's for sure.
without my village of people around me to help me through it, it would literally not be possible at all.
And it has been a pure joy to do this, by the
Yes.
way.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Oh, gosh.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Yes.
You're not just saying
We have fun
that.
every day.
There's
We
no
do.
script
That's our mission.
down there.
That's
Is
our mission.
there
No.
saying that? All right.
No, there isn't. So now, without further ado, Lee is going to read his chapter about his diagnosis.
And this comes right after last week's reading of the first chapter, which was literally just the day of my injury, which you can find
On YouTube.
archived, right?
On YouTube.
On YouTube. So, and all of these can be,
Yes.
if you want to go back
And watch a
recap them
replay.
or tell your friends or whatever, you can do that. So,
Yes.
anyway, here goes a reading. It's probably going to be 15 minutes or something.
And
like that.
please put questions in
Oh.
there as he's reading. When
Yeah.
something comes to mind, throw them in there.
Yeah.
You could do that. How do they
Yes.
do that?
in the chat or the comments, either one.
Chat or comments?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Chapter 2, the diagnosis. The MRI scan didn't show what everybody expected. His vertebrae wasn't broken by impact. There was no shattered bones. Instead, he had ruptured both the front and the back ligaments that stabilized the vertebral bodies, instantly rendering the joint unstable. The injury was between C4 and C5. Two vertebrae located in the middle of the neck. When his head struck the turf, the force hyperextended his neck, stretching the spinal cord beyond its tolerable limits. To a neurosurgeon, the injury would be obvious. To the untrained eye, however, the spinal cord damage would have appeared very subtle. The consequences wouldn't. They were catastrophic, and at the time, he didn't yet understand that this was not the end of just a fall, but the beginning of something major. Before Valerie, his wife, had returned to the hospital the next morning after the injury, he had been rushed into an 8-hour surgery that night that involved securing stainless steel plates and screws along the front of his spine and anchoring stainless steel Harrington rods along the back of the spine to stabilize those C4 and C5 vertebrae and prevent any further damage. Quote, "I've never felt so alone and scared as I was then, waiting for the word of how it went," said Valerie. When the doctor finally came out to talk to me, it wasn't good news. There was a very good chance that he would be a total quadriplegic. And that was if he survived. The neurosurgeons told her that he may never walk again. What they didn't say was that, quote, may, unquote, would become the most optimistic word of his life. It was just true enough to keep him hoping. Hope is a strange thing after spinal cord injury. It's really the only thing that keeps you alive most days. And this would end up following him for years to come. He learned what it's really like to live through the complications that come with a spinal cord injury. The ones nobody can prepare you for, and the ones you learn to endure because you have no choice. The setbacks, the pain, the surgeries, an exhausting cycle of progression and loss. He doesn't remember when Valerie told him what the surgeons had said. It didn't really matter, because the feeling was the same as the moment he was injured. He knew he was in trouble. There was also a good chance he would need to be on a ventilator, at least for a while. When she told the doctor that he didn't want to be on a ventilator, he said it was part of the recovery. Quote, "Lee and I had this conversation more than once in the hospital. If I am ever totally paralyzed and can't move, I don't want to be alive. Please do what you can do to help make this a reality." I agreed with him and said ditto. And as she described it, he asked her to help him in things if his situation turned out to be permanent. She was an anesthesiologist, and he knew she would know how to check somebody out. But you'd also have to do it without potentially being thrown in prison for murder, he concluded. Euthanasia, informally known as a mercy killing, is illegal in the United States. She replied, quote, I'll do what I can legally do. Lee woke up in the ICU from surgery, a room that would become his home for the next 10 days. The cervical collar was there again, rigid and unforgiving. It was also immovable. It bit into his skin, held his head in place as a restraint. It would be his constant companion for the next several months. Although his room was private, it was adjacent to the ICU entrance, ensuring rest would be scarce. Patients arrived and departed at all hours. Monitors beeped incessantly. Voices echoed. Gurneys rolled past his door. Nurses constantly entered, checking IV lines and the arterial line. They continually monitored his blood pressure. Vital signs: blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen saturation, glowed and beeped on a screen that never slept. Everything interrupted what little sleep might have been possible. Quote, I lay there day after day, night after night, not sleeping at all for almost 4 days, he said. It eventually got so bad that I started hallucinating. I remember the walls moving, and I saw shapes coming in and out of them, and I knew that I was seriously sleep deprived. Despite the concerns about the side effects of sedatives and narcotics, i.e. nausea, respiratory depression, sluggishness, heavy mental fog, he begged the nurses for something to just knock him out. They administered IV Dilaudid. The calm that followed was immediate. Any degree of which had been absent for days, he fell into a deep sleep. The day after his accident, he had called his younger sister Kimberly. Quote, there's been an accident, unquote, he told her matter-of-factly. Quote, do you remember the actor Christopher Reeve and what happened to him? My injury isn't quite as severe as his, but I have a spinal cord injury. It happened while I was playing polo yesterday. When you referenced Reeve, the first thing Kim thought was how difficult this chapter was going to be for her brother, because the day and the way he lived his life. She described him as, quote, remarkable, dynamic person who lives his life to the fullest. Of all the people for that kind of injury to happen to, this was going to be really, really tough. Both his siblings mobilized immediately. Kim flew in from Seattle. Their brother Tom, a open heart cardiac anesthesiologist at a level 1 trauma center in Montana, also made plans to get to Palm Springs. While Lee was fighting for his life, his wife Valerie knew that their reality was only beginning to take shape. She was distraught, trying to figure out their next steps. Several days into this, she intimated in front of Tom and Kim in the ICU that she would have trouble dealing with things going forward. The most notable of these interactions was while she having had a wound from the accident on his nose. She made it clear that this next chapter wasn't going to include her. She couldn't deal with it. It became obvious that she wasn't capable of serving as Lee's primary caregiver. And over the next few days, it concluded that Kim would likely need to take over finances, assume primary caregiver status, and manage everything else involved in getting through the next few months and getting him home.
quote, while I knew things were never going to be normal, I just figured it'd be the same thing with her, he thought. A new chapter, we're going to move on, we'll deal with it. Seems like she wasn't quite feeling the same way. Things would play out over the next month or two. Backing up, just 2 days after his injury came another traumatic blow. Lee got a call from Joyce, his best friend. It was about her longtime husband, Paul, who was also one of Lee's best friends. He had just died the day before, rather unexpectedly. We all know he had ALS, but his slow decline kept us hopeful that he'd be around for much longer, said Lee. Given the situation, he struggled during the very tearful call with whether he dared to be honest about his injury at that time. Joyce had been his best friend for years, and he knew the news of his situation would be devastating for her. Their friendship had spanned more than a half a century. They'd met in high school, choir, and had become best friends. They joined vocal jazz ensemble and were theater dance partners in the school's Bye Bye Birdie production. They went as part of a friends group to prom. Joyce worked in Lee's practice for 20 years. First as business manager, and then also as his first assistant in surgery. He had sung at Joyce's wedding, and the first baby that he had ever held was her firstborn child, Morgan. There had been a celebration of Paul's life several weeks after his death. When Lee hadn't shown up, Joyce knew that something was really wrong. It was when she called after that, he told her of his injury. Quote, "We spent a lot of time on the phone crying and reminiscing," she said. They made plans for her to visit Lee during his rehabilitation 7 weeks later. At that point, quote, "We cried a lot together." Quote, "He was still Lee with his jolly, sweet face, but he was completely incapacitated. I had to wipe tears from his eyes and feed him, but he was still Lee no matter what his body wasn't doing. Despite all the sadness and chaos, there were some light-hearted moments. Several days into the hospitalization, his wife managed to sneak Wilson, their dog, through the front doors of the hospital, and then, amazingly, through the front doors of the ICU, and finally into Lee's ICU room. Within seconds, Wilson jumped onto the bed and rested on top of Lee with his outstretched paws around him. Quote, "It's always amazing how intuitive dogs are," he said. "It warmed my heart and brought a definite, genuine smile to my face," unquote. His wife remained present some of the time at Desert Regional Hospital, but demonstrated other moments of care at times. Lee's injury had compromised his phrenic nerve, which innervates the diaphragm and originates from C3 and 5 spinal nerve roots. The basis of the medical phrase, quote, "C3, 4, and 5 keeps the diaphragm alive." The injury had weakened the chest wall and rib muscles, leaving the diaphragm to shoulder the entire burden of breathing. His neurosurgeon had warned that breathing would become more and more difficult over the next few days as the diaphragm fatigued. And then it happened in the middle of the night. His breathing became extremely labored, but Valerie was with him at the time. Quote, I was mid-sentence talking, and then instantly I couldn't breathe, he said. It was like I was a fish out of water. She noticed he wasn't breathing and asked him if he wanted her to perform mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. He, of course, frantically nodded yes. Quote, I took a big breath and shared it with him, and another before help arrives, she said. Those were very intimate moments and unforgettable. He described the feeling of warm air filling his lungs. Quote, it's not like a normal breath, but rather a warm, fuzzy feeling, especially when you're on a respiratory arrest, he said. Quote, she yelled, get the respiratory therapist, and within 30 seconds, they were bagging me, he said. Thank God she was there, because otherwise I would have eventually passed out alone in the room. The ICU nurses would have seen the respiratory arrest on the monitors, thus preventing any serious consequences, but it wouldn't have diminished the fear of eliminating the feeling of suffocation that would lead to unconsciousness. Quote, it's a really scary thought that most people don't think about, he said. The thought of what happened has never left him. Quote, I would have been lying there totally paralyzed and just waiting to pass out from suffocation. The thought still gives me PTSD, and it's really terrifying. Once stabilized, the staff, including an anesthesiologist, discussed the next steps. Sedation, intubation, and probably a tracheostomy. Lee understood each option. Tracheostomy is a surgical opening in front of the neck in which a breathing tube is inserted and then can be left, with proper care for weeks to months. During his training as a facial plastic surgeon, he had performed dozens of these. He didn't want to experience one from the other side. Physical therapy and rehab are not possible while a fresh tracheostomy is in place, and therefore he wasn't going to let it happen and be an option for him. The alternative, what was called BiPAP. It's a full-face mask delivering pressurized air and dictating measured breaths for you. Quote, but it was ridiculously claustrophobic. He said, I wanted to breathe faster, but I couldn't. I wanted to breathe deeper, but I couldn't. You can't communicate, you can't talk through the mask, and I couldn't reach up to adjust it. I felt like I was suffocating, even though I knew I wasn't. After several hours under this mask, the claustrophobia became unbearable. And at that point, he made the decision that being intubated was going to be more tolerable than this mask. After they removed it, fortunately, he was able to breathe on his own, but it was difficult as every breath was a conscious effort. And after several days, he'd stabilized and was later transferred to a regular floor, but had to insist that someone be present in the room at all times. Quote, I felt like I couldn't be left alone in any room at all for any reason. I was still ridiculously distressed over that respiratory arrest. Because of this, the hospital provided volunteers to sit with them in shifts, day and night. Desert Regional Hospital is a trauma hospital. It's not equipped to do any type of long-term rehabilitation. The next few days were spent determining where he would go for this. This was critical, as the doctors had informed him that at 12 months after the injury, patients on average would be at about 80% of where their final condition is going to be. Discussions with his neurosurgeon led him to choose one of the best spinal cord injury rehab centers in the country, Craig Hospital in Denver, Colorado. To be transferred there, a representative from Craig had to fly there to evaluate his eligibility and coordinate care. Kim, his sister, had already assumed her role as the manager of all things Lee. Insurance covered only 30 days of inpatient rehabilitation. 2 months of the stay had to be paid for by private pay. Each month there costs approximately $100,000. And Craig requires a deposit of that much even to just be admitted. His stay would likely last 3 months, and Kim coordinated it all. After several days, arrangements were made for his medical transport there. This involved traveling by ambulance to Palm Springs Municipal Airport and being loaded onto a medical transport Learjet that was supplied by Craig Hospital. He was strapped to a rigid backboard and his neck was fully immobilized. A former pilot himself, he watched as the plane climbed rapidly out of Palm Springs. He had always wanted to fly in an executive jet. This just wasn't the way he envisioned it happening. An hour and a half later, he landed in Denver and he was transferred to Craig Hospital. His first day at Craig marked the beginning of yet another chapter. That's the end of chapter 2.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Well, it's actually
Well,
chapter 3.
yeah.
Chapters around.
And how we
That's okay.
label
Yeah.
them or whatever,
Yeah.
still up in the air, but
Yes.
kind of going forward from the injury.
Mm-hmm.
So,
We would love
are
some
there
questions.
from the Ethernet out there somewhere?
Reese said Joyce was always amazing.
Oh, hi Reese. Happy to see.
Yeah.
Happy to have you here.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Hmm.
Pam Sellers.
Yes.
My daughter's very good friend dove into a pool, hit his head, and has been a quadriplegic
Oh.
since his early 30s. He was married, but that didn't last long, and he suffers depression.
Oh, wow. Somebody we went to high school with.
Her
Pam
son.
Sellers. Yeah.
Oh my.
Wow. So sorry to hear that.
So sorry, Pam.
Yeah. Didn't know
She
that.
didn't
well-
mention anything about how he's doing at this point or anything.
So Lee, I'm curious. How did you handle your depression? Because I know you had it too.
Well,
Obviously.
there's some major parts of the rest of the book that describe
That's true.
depression, suicidal thoughts,
Anxiety.
anxiety,
Yes.
and the realization that as a quadriplegic, even if you can't handle the depression
Mm-hmm.
and want to end it, there really is a lot of limited ways that you can do it. Which,
Yeah.
again, going forward in the book, there's some really interesting parts of one
Dealing
of the
with that.
chapters. So,
Pam said if you would connect with him, she'd be really happy to give you his name.
Absolutely.
Gresham, high school class of 2020.
Oh,
Absolutely.
well, I would.
Absolutely.
I'd love to talk to anybody who
Yeah.
knows anybody who's a quadriplegic, paralyzed, last week,
Yeah.
last month, 10 years ago,
Exactly.
30 years ago, because
Love
I
it.
do have some insight into it.
Yes.
And I can give some information.
Would love to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions
yeah,
there?
Reese asked, how did your children react to your injury?
Oh, that
Ooh,
again.
Good question.
That's
Very good.
coming up in the book. Just stay tuned. It's an interesting chapter, part of a chapter
Yes.
anyway.
Kim asked, you mentioned someone bagging you. What does that mean?
Bagging is what it's a abbreviation of what's called an ambulatory or AMBU bag. It's used by anesthesiologists, respiratory therapists. You put a little sort of cushiony mask over your nose and your mouth, and then you use what's it's attached to it is a bag, maybe 9 or 10 inches long, and just big enough you can get your hand around. And what they do, if you can't breathe for yourself, is they just squeeze the bag, inflate your lungs, and let go, and the air goes out. And they just do that repetitively enough to keep your lungs filled, keep you alive until you get to the next part of whatever's happening. So, and that's what bagging basically means.
Yeah.
Good question.
Next question.
I have a question. You said Christopher Reeve's injury was worse than yours. Like how? In what way?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, everybody knows Christopher Reeve, and they've seen him.
Superman.
Yeah, I mean, he was Superman, and actually after his injury, he was in more of a Superman. His injury, okay, my injury was about halfway down my neck. His injury was like one vertebral body, meaning 3/4 of an inch below the base of his skull, and it fractured
Compared to Lee.
1-2, really high, and it was so high that really even his diaphragm couldn't breathe for him. His chest wall muscles were totally paralyzed, and so he had to be for the next 8 or 10 years of his life with a tracheostomy in the front of his neck, especially at night, breathing for him.
Yeah. It's so
And-
scary.
Oh, really scary.
Ugh.
So,
Yeah.
but that's basically the difference. At least when I had my injury, I could breathe by myself, at least for that very short period of time. And I still have some function of my hands and some function of my shoulders and
Right.
that sort of thing.
That's what I was going to say about Christopher Reeves. He was pretty much on his chair, and his hands were just clawed
Yeah.
on the arms of his chair. He didn't have a lot of movement. Like
Oh, he
we
didn't
do.
have any movement.
Yeah.
At
So
C1 or 2,
it's okay.
that's a way higher
Just
level.
that much.
It's just
Yeah.
amazing that he survived.
Yeah.
As long
as
he
he
did.
did.
Oh
Totally.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good question.
Susie asked, do people actually hallucinate from lack of sleep?
Oh.
Oh.
Just ask
Well-
I've never heard that.
Okay, well, torture by sleep deprivation is a real thing. And you see that in movies sometimes.
Oh,
People
yeah.
thrown into some
Like really light.
concrete cell.
Yeah.
And the
Lights
music
on
lights
and
on.
music.
Keep them
blaring,
awake.
just screaming at you.
Yeah.
And no place to sleep, and the lights are just glaring. And after 2, 3, 4 days, you do literally start to hallucinate. Mine was just visual hallucinations, and I knew I was in trouble. So, but yeah, it is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Okay, any more questions, guys? Brady
What else
just
do you have on
joined.
Right?
Hi, Braylee.
Yes.
Someone said something about ALS. What is ALS?
Oh, ALS.
Your friend Paul.
No, Paul died. ALS is an acronym for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And basically what it is what they call demyelinating disease of the nerves, meaning the surrounding protective layer that surrounds nerves begins to degenerate, and you get very slow paralysis. And there's various forms of it. One of the more famous people that have it is Stephen Hawking, the Cambridge doctorate. There's a whole movie based on that. He had a very slow, like 20, 30,
Unusual.
40, very
Yeah.
unusual form of it.
Progression of it.
Yeah.
Paul had a version that started in his head neck area versus down in the periphery. And I think he was at about 3, maybe 4 years, maybe 5 at the most.
Yeah.
And passed away a little bit before we thought he
Thought
would.
he would, yeah.
And right before your injury.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Timing.
yeah, the timing was
Just
impeccable,
crazy.
of course.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions there?
Why can't you leave the tube in long term after being intubated? Karen asks.
Okay, the intubation is basically a tube that they stick down your throat. It has to go through your vocal cords, and then they inflate a little bit balloon there to keep secretions from going from your mouth down into your lungs. Problem is, if you leave it in more than a week or two, it starts to damage the vocal cords, significantly. So after a few weeks, if the prognosis is such that you're not going to be able to get the tube out, then what we do is surgically is make an incision in front of the neck below the vocal cords, open up a little flap in the front of the trachea, and then you slip in this sort of L-shaped tube, and you then breathe through that, and that way you don't damage everything above it.
Wow.
Interesting.
I know, is that weird?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
So Kathy,
Amazing.
we have an announcement for next week.
Yes.
Oh, yes. So next week, do you like our new little mics? Next week, I've created a new account for Lee, and it's Dr. Lee Robinson, and you can find him on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Most important, TikTok. And so next week, we will be going live from his new account, and I will share everything. You can still follow us on Twin Time Adventures, but also please start following him on Dr. Lee Robinson on all those platforms. And I'll make sure that you get the link for next week from his own account. So that's exciting news.
Yeah.
And going
Yeah.
forward, we'll
do
do our Sunday
things
evening
from-
live readings.
From that account,
Yeah.
your new account.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah.
Reese has a question.
Oh.
Dr. Robinson, was the horse that you had the accident on a horse that you were very familiar with?
Oh,
One that
Good
I was
question.
familiar with. Oh my. Yeah, I'd had him
Good
for
question.
3 years maybe, and he was my favorite horse. He was huge, really heavy, by polo pony, standards. But he was crazy fast and
It's of course.
very responsive, and I always played him in the last chukker, the last quarter, if you want to call it, of polo matches. And unfortunately, he's the one I went down on, but luckily he wasn't injured. And now my former
yeah, that's right.
polo pro from Bend Polo Club, where I really was learning to play polo, he bought him. And
Yeah.
the last time I had contact with Henry, he still said it was his favorite horse.
Aw.
So
Foxy? Is that
Fox, no,
No.
Foxy's another one, but
So what was
I-
the horse
I-
that you went down on?
that was Rocco.
Rocco.
Yeah.
Rocco?
Rocco.
All my horses were favorites for various reasons. So
Aw.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Reese and a heart.
Aw, thanks,
Aw,
Reese.
Thank you, Reese.
I'd make
Love
a
it.
heart. I'll make half a heart. How's
There
that?
we go. That works.
And Brandon loves the mics, so they sound.
Oh,
Ah.
good.
Yay!
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
What
next
other
question.
questions?
Why did you have to stay in the ICU for 10 days? Asked Joe.
Oh, that's a good
Oh.
question. Yeah, the surgery was done literally within 12 hours of my injury, and it stabilized the spine and that sort of thing. But the research at that point, at that time, had shown that if you keep the median or the median of the average blood pressure in your body up elevated higher than average, that you got more blood flow through the area of the injury and a slightly better prognosis for recovery. But to do that, they're giving you drugs to increase your blood pressure. And so they have to monitor
Yeah.
that on a constant basis. And that's what they call it an arterial line. They stick an IV into the radial artery in your wrist, tie it down, and hook that up to a monitor, and it just goes up and is continually monitored. And then they increase, decrease these, what they call pressors, which are drugs that increase blood pressure. They increase them and decrease them just to keep the blood pressure exactly where it needs to be. So you
Interesting.
have to be in the ICU for 10 days for that.
Wow.
Wow.
Good question.
Yeah.
Did you sleep at all during that?
I slept after the 4 days, but even going forward from that was really difficult
Yeah.
because they had me laying literally flat on my back the entire time.
Right.
They didn't move me, they didn't turn me, and I haven't mentioned it in the book, but within about 5 or 6 days, the back of my head, the very back of my head, became swollen. It was so irritated from laying on it, swollen and tender. It took
Ouch.
months for that to go away.
Wow.
Just a ridiculous amount of pain, but I don't know. You just take it. You know, take what's given to you at the time. So,
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow.
next question.
I think that's.
Where are your incision sites
Oh, incision sites.
Oh.
from your surgery?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I said that they went in anteriorly, which means
Right.
on the front. So the front of your vertebrae, your vertebral bodies of your spine, they had to go in through the front of my neck to get to that. Put in the plate screws to secure that front part of the spine. Then during surgery, when I was under anesthesia, they turned me from on my back to over to on my front. Then they made an incision in the back of my neck, right back there,
There.
and then they put in these stainless steel. They're called Harrington rods. They're a stainless steel rod, maybe inch and a half long. They go between the upper part of the spinal canal
Okay.
and then to the other, and secured with screws. And then they have to suture that up, and then you just heal. Yep.
Wow.
Good question.
Yeah. Very good.
Next question.
Colleen asked, what exactly is an MRI scan?
Oh, MRI. That stands for magnetic resonance imaging. And people think of scans, they think of CAT scans, which have been around for 50 years, which
Right.
show really extreme detail of bony structures.
Mhm.
But they don't do a good a good job of looking at soft tissue, meaning everything other than bone. And it doesn't use radiation like a CAT scan does. It uses this crazy strong magnet that surrounds you, and they turn it on and off just really frequently. And the software interprets the water molecules in the soft tissues of the body and show really detailed versions of what is other than the bone.
Thank you. I always wondered that. I've had MRIs. Probably most of us have. I never knew that. That was very enlightening. Thanks, Lee.
All most people know of an MRI is that you go into
Just go into a tube and you
that
get
tiny
claustrophobic
little
and
tube.
yes, but you don't know really what's going on.
Right.
Wow.
And
That's
hopefully
amazing.
You're not claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you are, I mean, you get
Oh my
on
God,
Clorox
exactly.
fan, but then they have to sedate you.
Yeah.
Then they have to have respiratory therapists there available, and it just is way more complicated. So it's better just, if you're going to have an MRI, just
Relax.
Don't worry. Yeah, just
Just relax.
relax. God, easier said than done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
While I was listening, I heard you talk about a cervical collar a couple times.
Oh,
Could you-
cervical collar.
Could you explain
Okay.
what that is?
So if you've ever
Yeah.
seen somebody who's had a whiplash injury,
Where's that?
rear-ended, they got a severe sprain of their neck, and they need to kind of keep it immobilized, they put this rigid plastic collar that supports your head and keeps your head from moving, and it's resting basically right at the base of your neck, over your collarbone, over the top of your shoulders, and it's, to say the least, it's irritating, and to say the most, it's you can't stand it. But
Yeah.
But it's necessary, obviously.
well, yeah, but I always wondered about it
Like how-
because once you have stainless steel screws and plates and all that stuff,
That should-
I mean,
True that.
Yeah.
what is moving your head like from here to here going to damage anything? And I didn't mention in future chapters in the book, or maybe I should, do that. But they wanted me to wear that collar 24/7, and what I did when I ended up at the rehab hospital is I had whoever was with me just take it off when my doctors weren't around, and when I wasn't up in this power chair going to all my physical therapy and all that stuff.
Right.
And then when I came back to the room, I
Put it back on
I know
before you're busted.
I was a bad boy. Anyway,
Surprise, surprise.
Well, our sister had a neck injury, and she had to wear that. She said that.
Colleen,
same
you
thing.
can relate to this.
Oh, how just uncomfortable and like take
She
this thing
hated
off
that
of me.
thing.
She hated it.
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
she
yeah.
she had fallen and
Yeah.
just shattered her face, but
Yeah.
she ended up having sort of a irritation of an old
injury.
cervical injury, whiplash injury,
Yeah.
and she ended up this full face just smash and blood in her orbit and her sinus and her upper jaw were fractured. But the only thing she could say is that EMTs came was her arms
hurt.
were just like inflamed, and she just couldn't stand the pain in her arms. That's exactly what I have,
So they
and
both have
she's the
So
only
weird.
person in the world, at
Yes.
least in my
Or
circle,
Yeah.
our circle, that knows what
Exactly
that
what you're feeling.
feels like.
Neuropathy
Yeah.
pain.
Luckily, it's improved, but she still has issues
She
with
still
it.
has issues with it.
And she hated that collar that you just described.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cervical collar.
Yes. Oh.
No.
Next question.
Tom said you mentioned something called a BiPAP. Is that like a
BiPAP?
CPAP.
Oh.
Oh yeah, people have heard of CPAP, and it's continuous positive airway pressure. And what it does is for people whose back of their throat sort of collapses when they fall asleep and they snore, and then it blocks their ability to breathe, and you know, ends up with their blood oxygen levels plummeting, that sort of thing. They wear this mask at sleep, when they go to sleep, and all it does is it creates a positive pressure, meaning when you breathe out, there's still a little bit of pressure there that keeps the upper airway open. You need more than that when your diaphragm and your whole chest wall is paralyzed. And so they have BiPAP. And BiPAP is different because it also gives you positive pressure, but it actually breathes for you. In CPAP, you can take a breath whenever you want.
Yeah.
And you can take as deep a breath as you want. But with BiPAP, it dictates when you take a breath and how deep you take a breath. And even if you feel like you want to breathe a little more
You can't.
or deeper, you can't do it.
No wonder why you felt so claustrophobic.
Yeah, no
God's sake.
kidding. Whoa, I would not like that at all.
I don't
No.
think anybody would like it.
No.
So. But, you know, it let my diaphragm rest for
Right.
a number of hours, enough to sort of get re-engaged
Yeah.
and allow
Yeah,
me to not
thankfully.
have to be intubated.
Yeah, so that was good
Yeah.
for sure.
You, Jesse, said what is your diaphragm?
Oh, that's a good question. The diaphragm is actually this thin layered muscle that sits between your lungs and then the rest of your abdominal cavity, and it's sort of curved upward when it's resting, and when you take a breath, it contracts and it flattens. And when it flattens from curved to straight, it pulls your lungs down and creates a situation where your lungs inhale, and then when you exhale, it just relaxes. And that whole process is unconscious. You don't think about it,
right.
and it's predetermined by a part of your brain, deep brain, down deep in the upper part of the core and the base of the brain. And that's what that is. It's just a thin muscle, but pretty important
though.
for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Love it.
All right.
Well,
Are
This has
those
been
all the
really good.
questions?
going forward,
Great
that's
interaction.
good.
Yes.
Yeah,
thank
you
you for
guys.
all the questions. Those were
What's
amazing.
Next week's chapter.
Oh, good question, Carla.
Okay.
Um.
The next week's chapter
I don't
is
even know.
leaving
Oh.
the Desert Regional Trauma Hospital
And going
and
to Craig.
arriving
Craig.
at Craig Hospital, the
Okay.
one in Denver, where I spent 3 months rehabilitating. And it's all about getting there, getting, evaluated, learning how to get in a chair,
The sip and
going
puff
through the
and
rehab.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of an involved chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually still working on it a little bit, but
Be good.
it's eye-opening because most people don't. I mean, people hear trauma,
Yeah.
but they
Right.
don't never really hear and think about rehabilitation hospitals
Right.
where you're actually inpatient for
Yeah.
three
Cannot
full
even
months.
imagine.
So
right.
Yeah.
yeah,
Stay tuned.
So
you
thank
think-
you so much for joining us. And I will be sure and provide the link for everybody to join us next week. Next Sunday, 7 p.m. We
Live.
will be back live here on
Like you said,
TikTok.
Follow Dr. Lee Robinson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Follow Dr. Lee
do.
Robinson on TikTok.
We do have one.
Oh, one more
last
question.
we're-
Love it.
of course.
Carla and Kathy, you both seem to bring so much positivity with you. How did you meet Dr. Robinson?
Oh
for
boy,
God's
that's a
sake.
whole other
That's
chapter,
an
Reese. But a
entire-
good question,
It's
Carla.
a
Long.
very romantic.
It's a very romantic love story. Lee and I met in 1979 down in
Oregon
college
State.
at Oregon
give
State.
away
I don't
too
want to give
much.
it away.
Okay.
So we are reconnect, and I've never been happier. I'll leave
Reconnect
it-
after.
And I set
4
them up
decades.
because
Decades.
Lee and I were friends first, and I set
Yeah.
them up.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful story. Thanks for
It's,
asking.
it's really complicated, but it's very.
But very
It's
fun.
fun. It's
Very
a fun
fun.
chapter in the book,
Yep.
for sure. Awesome.
Guys.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Woo, good night.
Bye.
Thank you.